Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Doing really well, really
Oh,
well.
yeah, of course, it's not morning for you. So, welcome if you're joining us from wherever it is in the world that you are. I'm Louisa Munson, coming to you from kind of halfway down Portugal, not far from Lisbon, on the sunny Silver Coast. The sun has yet to rise, and I'm joined by lovely Rick Pursell in Bali, Indonesia. What's it like there today?
Sunny, gorgeous mornings, very, very clear.
Oh,
Mountains you could almost reach out and touch, and
pleasant.
lovely sunny days. It's the dry season, so it's one of the special times of the year, and you would remember that.
Yeah, I will. From a long time ago now.
Seems like it.
Yeah, that's 13 years ago since I set foot in Indonesia.
Really.
But what an amazing place it is, or was, or is, isn't it? So
It is.
we're meeting up to talk about, to have one of our lovely conversations, and we're talking. You gave me the title "Dueling for Duality." Was that right?
Yeah. Um,
Or dueling with duality, unraveling the
Dueling with
mysteries of
duality.
consciousness.
Yes. Yeah.
Where do you want to
I thought
start? Do
that,
you want to just dive right in?
yeah, why not? Why not? Got nothing to lose. Well, first of all, let's define duality.
Okay.
Um, Duality is the opposites of everything, the polarity. So, masculine, feminine, day and night, hot and cold, good and bad,
Yep.
and
Male
go
and
on
female.
infinitely, right? And this universe that we inhabit is dualistic by nature.
Yep.
So, it's that way because it gives us an opportunity to experience all facets of life.
Yep.
Very often we just want the good stuff. Just give me the white side of the yin yang symbol. And while you're at it, rub out that little dot of black for
Yeah,
me.
we don't want that.
No, get rid of that. Paint that over in white. But it's, as I've mentioned numerous times in the past, how we arrive at decisions of what we want in our life is usually by having experienced what we don't want.
Yeah.
And so, right now, our world is in crisis economically, politically, educational wise, religions, every facet of most facets of life are in some form of crisis, whether that be the crisis of change or the crisis of this duality where everything seems to be oppositional.
Yeah.
And we are seeing elements of this. You've got in the UK, we've got no more oil versus, the public not being able to get to London Central.
Yeah.
We've got in the States, we've got two political climates that are just adversarial, fighting each other. And we've got trans movement, all sorts of oppositional activities, the duality. And most people are dueling with it. They're fighting it.
Yeah.
Right? Now that doesn't imply that we should just stop fighting and give up and let everybody walk over us like a doormat and wipe their dirty boots on us. But it really is an acceptance of reality. And this is the reality that's unfolding at the moment, is that there's a lot of duality and there is a lot of battling that's going on, and there's a lot of adversarial, oppositional perspectives. So that sets the scene on it. Back to you.
That really does. No, thank you. And before we go any further, maybe you'd like to just tell us a few words about how you have come to be somebody that we could learn about duality from. Put you on the spot. I never really introduce you anymore because I just assume that everyone that listens knows exactly who you are. But you never know, do you? I can see we've got Gaining Wisdom. I think that's Stuart joining us from the US. I can't remember where you are though, Stuart. But thank you for your continued support. We really appreciate you.
Indeed.
I hope you're feeling as beautiful as that golden heart would imply. So yeah, I mean, what, why are you qualified to tell us about duality?
because I've because I've lived in this dualistic world longer than you have.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You have,
So
definitely.
77 years of it.
That's incredible.
Um,
I'm
and
pretty sure anyone watching will be a bit surprised by that.
not as surprised as me. I never thought I'd get this far. But I don't profess to be an expert on this. But by clear observations, there is two sides of the coin. We have one coin, two sides.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if we can look at both, be willing to look at both sides and acknowledge that there is a singular part to that, and that it is one coin with two sides. And we have that in ourselves, where we have the ego, which is based in fear and separateness and superiority and judgment and all of those bits. And then we have the authentic self, which is steeped in love and kindness and compassion and caring and appreciation. And that really is the makeup of the human. Most humans, I actually don't know of any that I personally interacted with that doesn't have this dualistic makeup. And I have heard of people that are so-called enlightened, where they say they don't have that element about them anymore. But I certainly haven't got to that stage, and I don't know anybody in my sphere of influence that has. So why do we have this ego? Is to show us what we don't want. When we behave destructively, when we're self-sabotaging ourselves, when we're being greedy or inconsiderate to people, and then afterwards we think, oh, that wasn't a very nice thing to do, or we think, oh, I was a bad person there. Those are judgments, of course, and labels. But having experienced that, I think, okay, I won't do that again. I won't do that again. I'll do something different next time. So I can see why we have this ego, and it's playing out on a micro scale as it is on a macro scale. So you only have to look around our world to see that. So that's, and I had two profoundly traumatic experiences in my life, which showed me the really depth of despair, and how I've now managed to move on beyond that, heal from it, and to be able to now equipped to be able to help people with trauma and running retreats as we've done for 10 years here, so that I had some credibility because I've been there. I know what it's like to be suicidal. Right? I know what it's like to be sexually abused by a pedophile uncle. Right? So those things, now when I look back, they have equipped me to be able to do what I do. So I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything in the past. I might make different decisions, but I wouldn't try and change my past. So that's the only credible answer I can give you to a very good question. Why am I qualified?
No, I think that was a fantastic answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you as well. It's interesting because, instantly when you mention the experiences that you've been through, I'm pretty sure anyone listening would have a very, very strong feeling of that is right, that is wrong. And of course, that brings up the whole nature of duality of which we speak. And to be able to see the thin connecting line between the good and the bad, or the right and the wrong, and the black and the white, how do you go about starting that? How do you go about turning that coin from seeing just one face to no faces?
Well,
because I mean, it must be very difficult when you're in the middle of a personal experience.
It's challenging as well, yes.
Yeah.
And it takes a few of these experiences to realize that, I'm still here. I've moved on from that. It was horrible while it was on there, but I've gone beyond that. I've healed from that, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
what I've consciously used as a practice for myself is finding the triune.
Yeah.
So we've got the two sides, and what is the triune? So let's use, for example, temperature. If I say to you temperature, the word temperature, it doesn't imply it's hot or cold. It's neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But then I say, oh, it's cold today, right? Which is relative, right? What I might think is cold here is about 14 degrees, which it was this morning, right?
In the UK, that would be considered average.
Yeah, yeah.
It would be cold here too.
Yeah. And then the other side of the spectrum, on the bottom of the triangle, is it's hot today. What is hot? There's degrees of all of that. But if we can melt this down to the middle and see what is the triune of that. So if we've got duality, then oneness, one life, one essence, all right, is the triune of duality. And again, using temperature. Temperature doesn't imply any degrees whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I consciously look for that in people, and when I see behavior that is destructive and causing harm, I can see it shows me the other side, that there are beautiful people that are not causing harm in the world, and it takes all kinds. And what we're doing now is we're becoming more conscious so that we don't cause as much harm as possible. I think the duality will always be there for at least for a very long time. I think it serves a purpose. But short answer is find the triune. What's the middle ground? If we look at a pendulum swinging left and right, and eventually it'll stop, and it'll stop in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's neither left or right. Look for that in whatever's unfolding.
That's a great way of looking at it. So in terms of like dueling with duality, I guess that's occurring when we are fighting and putting up a resistance against the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. We are resisting reality.
Yeah.
The reality is that there are people in the Ukraine and Russia who are losing their lives over this incursion. There are people that are drowning in the Mediterranean, trying to escape from their countries. So when we fight with reality, we always lose. So what we dueling with duality is, well, this shouldn't be this way, right? This shouldn't be this way. But the reality is, this is what's unfolding at the moment. Now, if you can take away the resistance to this and you accept it without condoning any bad behavior, right? We don't condone unethical behavior, behaviors out of integrity, illegal behaviors, spousal abuse, you name it. The list is very long. We don't say, oh, that's okay, they're just human. It's human to do that. No, we don't accept that. Right? But what we are not doing is we're not saying this should not be this way when it's in our face. And this can be, I just received a bill from the taxation department to
I got one of those.
Yeah, I know you had one. To something that's extreme. Some extreme weather. Hawaii's raging with bushfires at the moment. And we could be saying, well, this shouldn't be this way. So when we can accept the reality of what's unfolding, now it gives us more conscious awareness to think, okay, what could I do about this? If I feel strongly about it, right, what can I do about this? Right? Instead of it being in a very resistant, inner conflicting place, this shouldn't happen. It's happening.
Yeah. That's great, Rick. There's a couple of things I'd like to do, and also before I do that, just say I came across the phrase "what is what's best" a really like a long while ago. I think it might have been one of the things that Carl says to me quite a bit, and I could never really understand it fully. But my understanding now is okay. Well, it's already happened, therefore it must be the best or for the best, because I don't know, and maybe this is the triune of beingness, but I think that the force behind everything that is animating everything, and it's just my personal belief. I'm pretty sure you feel the same way. I feel that the force behind that is love, and everything that happens in love is for the best, and we might not just realize it from our unique perspective. So that's the first thing. So I'm wondering if the triune of living is love. I don't know, but anyway, what I really wanted to ask you was if we could follow the two pathways of what happens. So for instance, like when somebody is in the midst of a drama, let's say I don't know. I can't think of an example readily. Can you think of an example of a big drama that's going on right now? I put it down to the fact that it's like 17 minutes past 7.
Right.
My brain's not
A loss of freedom of speech.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so let's assume there's a loss of freedom and a loss of speech, a freedom of speech. And we can actually relate directly to that, both of us, can't we? Because we've both been censored for maybe speaking out
Yes.
in the not so distant past about maybe a sweeping belief system, a sweeping narrative about ill health. So anyway, what happens, like if we were to follow us, you and I getting censored or other people getting censored and losing their freedom of speech, we could go into resistance straight away. And I have to say, I have gone into resistance with this straight away and said,
It's
"What
natural.
the?" And then thought, "Oh my God, this should not happen." What happens when you go into resistance?
Well,
What are we doing to
there's
ourselves?
the inner conflict of arguing with reality.
Yeah,
We've just been censored. There's the reality.
yeah,
All right. But instead of saying, okay, I accept that reality, now what can I do about that? We're just pushing up against it. This shouldn't be, and we can moan and groan about it and do whatever is usually, it's not so fulfilling in terms of enriching your life.
yeah. I've certainly acted in less than graceful ways.
Me
And
too. Me too.
and it's funny. Um, you've heard of landmark training, like the Landmark Forum,
I have, yes.
and they talk about things like and I'm not a landmark trained person, so if you're listening and you are, please forgive me for my ham-handed version. But like one of the things that I've learned secondhand from some landmark people is that we get very upset when we have an unmet expectation, when we have an expectation and it's not met, an unfulfilled expectation, in fact. And that, our protestations and our upset saying it shouldn't be like this, it's actually like a tantrum.
Yeah.
And, actually, I hear my children say things like that all the time. And which is actually quite early, I think. They're not teenagers yet, but they are fully going into that stage at times. So like when we're in that kind of behavior, in that kind of it shouldn't be, what are we doing to ourselves and how can we get out of it quickly?
Mm.
What's the sort of what happens if we carry on being there? What's the cost to
Yeah.
us?
We're self-sabotaging ourselves because we're in a resistant mode. We're not in a particularly creative innovative or inspiring place.
Yeah.
And we're not actually dealing with the consequences where we're introverting this stuff. We're taking it in as almost like a personal attack on ourselves.
Yeah.
And to give you an example, one of the twins, Maya, 2 days came to me in absolute tears. On the weekend, she had downloaded Minecraft on a new MacBook that she bought.
Yeah.
Was absolutely loving it for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
She hadn't been playing it for ages. She came in tears and she said, "I've been hacked." Right?
Oh,
And
bless her.
I can't get out of this because whenever I go to try and resolve it, there's a phone number that says, "Call this number." Right? And she was reluctant to do that. And there were 4 different numbers, right? So we know it's a hacker. And so then I was trying to deal with her and saying, "Listen, darling, it's not the end of the world, right? You've had a few days of enjoyment out of it."
Yeah.
But what the place you're in at the moment, she was in absolutely distress with it, is you're not going to find any logical solutions to this. Right? And I appreciate you coming to me, but I want to empower you. So what can you do about it? Right? So one of the things is, well, look, it's not the end of the world. You're tired now. Let's get back to it in the morning. All right. You've had a busy day at school. You said you were tired. You didn't sleep much the night before. So let's get a decent rest. Don't worry about it. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
So we need to try and either uplift ourselves, right, by doing something constructive, or it could be a not so much a distraction, but do something creative or just something that is taking your mind off there just momentarily. I'm not saying running away from it, but just right now I'm tired. Probably best to just go to bed and go to sleep. Forget about it.
Yeah.
So let's do something that, if you can't resolve it immediately, don't offer any resistance. But long term, and this is a long-term practice that I've used for myself for years, is that I put out what I want to create and manifest in the world, and then I sever the connection to it. I sever the attachment. So now I've said, I've put it out there, it can happen or not happen. All right?
Yeah.
If it's supposed to happen, it will. If it's not supposed to happen, it won't.
Yeah.
So now I've divested myself of any disappointment because my expectation wasn't met. And there's a very famous Indian guru that says, expectations reduces joy. So wonderful when they come true, horrible when they don't.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't mean we live a cloistered life. By all means, postulate the future, make a compelling future. What do you want to do? Where do you want to travel? But then just cut the attachment to it.
Yeah.
Right? And then if it doesn't happen in that time frame, it can still happen in another time frame, or may not happen at all. But you're not going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And that dealing with the disappointment is a lot harder to do.
Can I just get that phrase again? I really like that. I'm always writing notes. Look, can you see?
Yeah, I want to know how you can write, talk, and smile at the same time without looking at the pen or the paper.
You know what? I can do drawings as well without looking at the paper. Honestly.
Really?
Right.
Wow.
Well,
That's drawing from the right hemisphere.
Okay, I'm not looking at this could go horribly wrong, Rick, and if so...
I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
I'm hoping this doesn't go wrong, but just quickly drawing a picture of you. Yeah. That's me drawing without looking at the page.
Oh my God. A bald guy with a big nose. That's what I could recognize.
It's a bit Picasso-esque, but maybe I've missed my calling. But what's that phrase again, please?
Expectations reduces joy.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
they do.
let's not curb our creative flow, because we
Yeah.
are co-creating in this world together. We're creating realities, all right? Yours and my lives, and our viewers and listeners have created a life. May not be what you want, or it may be even better than expectations. So, but it's the attachment. This must be the only outcome I'm prepared to accept. Right? Wow, that's walking on minefield. That one is.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah,
it
I know.
doesn't happen, we pull back on that. Well, maybe I expected a bit too much. I'll pull back, disempowering ourselves. So
Yeah, it's
go
a
ahead.
funny one, because once we start going down that path, it's very difficult to start over. I realised in the last few years I've been having a bit of a hissy fit myself, a long, slow hissy fit with life, about, it shouldn't be like this. I should own my own house by now, and I should have a really big garden that I can grow vegetables in. And why is this not happening? And I think one of the troubles with these expectations is, at some level, it feels like it's true. And of course, and I think the news media are very good at doing this. They'll put out something that's untrue with a tiny seed of truth in. So it doesn't, so that we can get really tripped up on our definitions of things. And that we can take things really personally. Like in your example of your lovely daughter who got hacked. And I think actually my Facebook's been hacked this morning, by the way. So please don't message me on Facebook. But it must be awful for her. I mean, stuff like that happens to me, when I can't get into my bank details or something. It's slightly different. But, when you're trying to pay for something and you get in one of those little loops on a computer system, and there's no obvious way out, and everything just sends you back round. And I've thrown keyboards on the wall because I was like, how do I do this? It shouldn't be like this. And you're right. The moment you are in those locked situations, you are uncreating or reducing joy for yourself. But you're right. You can't access that part of you that is inspired. You can't access that part of you that would find creativity.
Yes. Yeah.
So to paraphrase you, or to kind of like sum it up, when we get stuck in resistance to reality, and we are resisting reality, and we're saying, when we're fighting it, and like you say, when we fight reality, we always lose. The quickest way that you have found to stop the feeling of it being a personal attack is to somehow uplift yourself, do something creative, and possibly manifest how you would like it to be, but then cut all attachment to it.
Yeah. And that takes a bit of practice, but it's, yeah, it's certainly worked for me.
Yeah.
It's certainly worked. Now I have total freedom. Freedom is the ability to have something or not have it.
Yeah.
Right? If you're an alcoholic, has to have a drink to quell this addiction, or to serve the addiction. But if you can have something and not have it, then that's true freedom.
Yeah.
And it can be, I can have this. I'm very comfortable with it. My havingness is really good, or I'm not allowed to have this. So it's a question of, it's a balance, and everything is in moderation. There's an old saying, everything in moderation, including moderation. But the ability to have or not have something is freedom. So when we're arguing with reality, we're not free.
Yes.
Right? We're resisting having this malware or hacker or this taxation bill or this illness or whatever it is. Right?
Yeah.
So if we can just say, okay, I can have, this is reality. I can have this. It's jolly uncomfortable. It's not something I want to pursue, right?
Mm.
But now I'm in a better place to be able to, well, what can I do about this? What
Yeah.
options are open to me, right?
Yeah.
So
I really like that perspective of, sorry, I'm fiddling. I've broken my pen. And I was really enjoying writing with it as well. I really like what you're saying there about freedom. It's having the freedom to have it or to not have it. That
yes,
is very powerful.
yeah,
Because once you are addicted, like you said, in terms of alcohol, or when you have any sort of addictive need or expectation, you don't have the freedom at all.
not at all.
And of course, if you equate having it as being the only thing that you accept, that's a recipe for unhappiness, isn't it?
It is, yes, because if it's not, if it hasn't come, and throw in over the top of that, we've become a very instant society, instant coffee, instant
Yeah,
communications, instant this.
yeah,
So we expect this to manifest instantly,
yes,
and when it hasn't, we get disappointed.
yeah,
So, but if you've put it out there what you want to manifest, and then with this idea that I can have or not have it,
yeah.
this complete peace of mind about that.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, I really see the power in that, and I can see that I've resisted a lot more reality than I first thought. um, I also think, like you mentioned, like you're caught. It is like an entrapment, isn't it? You know,
mm,
um, and I feel like from an early age we're all, um, dare I say, brainwashed into the feeling of expectations being good and to plan for our future. And you know, uh, like we are trained in black and white thinking from an early age. You know that we're not. I mean, the Socratic method is not used in schools very often now, is it?
right.
I saw a quite a terrifying video actually last night on Twitter. I don't really go to the Twitterverse very often, but I was walking in behind my husband Carl, and he loves a little bit of that. Just to see, he's able to watch it and stay quite immune to the effects of it, but he's fascinated, where I can't. And so I saw some British police officers crashing into somebody's house to arrest a teenage daughter because they were going to take her away because she'd called somebody a lesbian in the street. And the parents were saying, hang on, take a step back. Our daughter's autistic. And she actually said, is that woman a lesbian like grandma is? Or something like that. You know, it was like a comment. And there was this huge kind of tussle going on, you know, like there was just this sense of two very immovable forces, and then the obvious distress of this young girl, and it was obviously never going to work. But things like that, I think, have been seeded to us in consciousness over the news for quite some time now. But the fact that in schools, and you know, like there was a time when the local Bobby would maybe just knock on the door and say, look, we've had a complaint, somebody was upset, and you know, or they probably wouldn't have actually got involved. But we're now living in times where if you make a comment or ask a question, um, people are taking offense, but nobody's really sticking around to find out if you know, like what the circumstances are, and also how, when people have a conversation about things, that we can, I don't know, we can resolve things ourselves. um so I almost feel like we're living in times now where there is this very sort of black and white idea, and people aren't able, like we're taking things personally, aren't we? That was your question. When we're in a resistant mode, we take things personally.
Yes. Well, let's define the we, because only the ego can be offended.
Okay, yeah, I like
Only the ego can be offended. So um, again, we're dueling with duality. Is that black and white, right, can't, uh, from the perspective of a person, I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah.
And the white side says, no, I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah.
So what we're doing, and that's the ego. The ego wants to make everybody wrong and themselves right. It's steeped in fear, so the person feels threatened in some shape or form. Then there's separateness. So here's an excuse to separate from somebody. And when we're separate from somebody, we can cause harm.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's superiority. Those are the three major aspects of the ego. So if I think I'm superior and I know better, I'm going to shout you down and make you wrong.
Yeah.
If I'm coming from the ego.
Yeah.
So this is what's happening now. This duality has been exacerbated by the programming that we're getting through the mass media, right? Where you have to take sides, right? On everything.
Yeah.
On COVID, you have to take the sides on Ukraine or Russia, and we're being forced to take sides. Yeah.
Yeah,
Brexit,
I realised in the telling of that story that I'd taken a side already. You know, my side was this was resolvable, and the police are supposed to have some kind of moral capacity, like causing the distress to somebody and their family in such a heavy-handed way. I felt superior and very separate from them at that point.
But also knowing you.
What was your third point? Because you said we separate, we feel superior, and you said there were three things.
Well, there's three. Fear is at the top of the pyramid. Yeah. And then you've got separateness and superiority, and then judgment, cynicism, I'm not good enough, all of the subsets. But coming back to that video clip, you also have you value justice.
I do,
it's one of your highest values.
I know that. Yeah. Justice.
So there you're watching, where is the justice in here?
Yeah.
Right? It was an injustice. It was an encroachment of privacy.
Yeah.
And it was encroachment of for enforcement. Right? Yeah. It was a violent act.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, it really was.
There was no justice in that.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you see this and you felt strongly about it, then you could go and do something that would pursue and support justices in the world, whatever that would be. I just had a thought. A couple's son, this is hypothetical, a couple's son is knocked over by a drunk driver in the street and killed. Right? The reality is this is what's happened. Right?
That's
awful. And they're fighting, they've taken sides and they want the worst possible outcome for this drunk driver. Yeah. Right? So if they felt strongly about it, nothing is going to bring their son back.
Yeah.
But what if they could start up a little group in their village or wherever they were, and we're going to teach our teenagers, girls and boys, to drink responsibly.
Yeah.
Right? And we're going to set up a booze bus where if kids want to go off to a party, they'll be picked up by this bus, drop them off, and they'll be dropped off back at home. They don't even get in a car. Right? Wow. And all of these things that then you could work towards ensuring or doing something to help prevent another accident of that nature. Yeah. And it can be any facet of life if we feel strongly about it. You know what my strong one is? It's about a lack of consciousness, which results in unwise, unintelligent behaviors. So my whole life at the moment is to put forward ways of which we can become more conscious, and then we'll be wiser and more intelligent with our behaviors.
Yeah.
So I feel strongly about that. I feel deeply moved. I'm brought to tears when I read about Julian Assange, because like you, I value justice as well.
Yeah.
And I value freedom of speech. So there's, but you know, we can't go out and save the whole world.
can we have true freedom when speech is being held back like that?
Well, no, we can't. Anything that encroaches on our true freedom is not freedom.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing, because in recent times, all of these censorship things, these censorship mandates and ideas have been kind of marketed as keeping people safer so they have greater freedom.
Yes.
Ironic.
That's a beautiful lie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an amazing lie, and a very convincing one to a lot of people. I really like your idea of a booze bus. Have you done that before? Have you organised that?
I have, but in
Make a lot of
Australia,
money with that idea.
it was a very common idea.
Really?
That because there were police roadblocks and people were getting fined for having a little bit over the limit.
Yeah.
And so they brought in these Toyota coasters. The hire companies, you could hire one for the day with the driver, or setting up a designated driver who didn't drink that night.
Yeah.
Lots of ways of doing that. And that's at the community level. Right? So you can get a lot of support on that. One family that has lost a son or daughter could create an amazing ripple of change within that community. Well, what can we do to prevent them? We can't bring them back. What can we do to prevent this happening again?
Yeah.
Right? And we're not going to be able to save every life on the planet, but if you can save one life, it's worth it.
Definitely. It's interesting what you talk about, unwise, unintelligent behaviors. And yes, I do know that that's one of the things that you feel most strongly about. One of my biggest fears is, believe it or not, is being the cause of someone's misery through accidental or maybe unconscious behaviors. I mean, I think there are some unconscious behaviors where we are absolutely acting out on aspects of our personality that we can't see. You know, we can't see ourselves being childish or irresponsible. There are certain times, you know, like when people have an argument and you storm out all of a sudden, you get in the car, and you're in this kind of blind rage. But then there are just also times when you're not distracted, you're in perfect health, perfect consciousness, and you have one of those accidents that could cause somebody some great harm. I have a cousin who was driving down a motorway, and I think if the story is correct, a child broke out onto the motorway and was hit and killed. And I can't imagine what that must be like for your life to be somehow associated with the death of somebody else. You know, there are times when, you know, stuff like that happens. And there was no sort of direct intent to cause anyone any harm whatsoever. I really wonder about that, because it sets up a new situation for lots and lots of people to react and to judge and to, you know, to take action on.
Putting on my coach's hat, this is how I would deal with it.
Yeah.
I would ask the simplest question: were you in control of what happened then? What control did you have over that child running in front of your car?
Only a pair of brakes on the car, you know, but like they broke onto a motorway system, you know, and they were really young. They'd, you know, there's a motorway on the back of somebody's on the back of a housing estate.
Right. So the driver had little to no control over what had happened.
Yeah.
So the ego would take blame for that and punish them.
Yeah.
That would be self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't mean it from a callous point of view.
No.
But just we know what right and wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Most times we know, we can see our behaviors. We may not see what's motivating it, right? We may not see some learned conditioned behaviors from our parents that we're playing out because they're coming from the unconscious, but most of the time we're aware of our behavior. Right? And in the case there where a child ran in front of the car and you hit them, that was totally out of your control.
Yeah.
So were you responsible for that person's death? I would say no.
Yeah.
Right. And then from the very bigger picture is that circumstances, everything happens for a reason. And how do we know what was the motive behind that was maybe unconscious or conscious, right? And looking at the bigger picture. Maybe this is something that I had to overcome, right, as the driver. Or maybe the child was running away from something out of fear. There would be a lesson in that. And that would play out at some time, maybe in another lifetime or whatever. But when we deliberately, consciously go out and cause harm, then we are the cause of that, and we have to be held responsible and accountable for it. So it's we really have to look at what control did I have of that?
Yeah.
Right? And if I had zero control of that, this car came out of nowhere. Right?
Yeah. I love what you said there. That's a very sort of clarifying question that is very useful in those moments. And something else that occurs to me is that and this may or may not work for different people if they're listening, because not everyone has the same view of reality as I do. But I do think we become cooperative components in other people's manifestations. There are you like I guess we're all attracting and repelling sort of energy all day long, and we're all kind of putting out thoughts of what we'd like, and some of them we want to attract and we're resistant at the same time, and there's no real sort of like clear flow of energy from anyone, I don't suppose. We're often at odds, and if we were like the overall divine force trying to manage everybody's expectations and directions and this, that, and the other, I've noticed that some people, to have their way, sometimes there's nothing to help them achieve that, and their way might be to have a big argument with somebody or to blame somebody for something, and you could just be walking into their world and you might have an expectation of being wrong or have an expectation of having being the cause of something, and it's like boom, all of a sudden two strangers meet, and you're a cooperative component in each other's manifestations.
We are co-creating. There's 9 billion bodies on this planet that are co-creating the reality that we're facing now. Each one of us has contributed in some shape or form. And one of the ways that I look at when I use the policeman situation, right? The police have been given inordinate amount of power and have been militarized. Right. So that means that they've been trained to kill or suppress or stop things.
Stomp on.
Right. But when you look at the violence that can be perpetrated like that through the police, right, then I look at that and think that person is really hurting. That policeman is really hurting. He's chosen a profession that initially was to help people and to uphold the law, but something has happened where he's now been trained, militarized, or whatever, or what other supervisory influences happened in that situation that he would now break into a house and terrorize a young teenage girl. You have to be hurting really badly, and especially if you interviewed him, he said, well, I've got kids myself. Yeah, How
The
would you like that if somebody did that to you?
Yeah, I mean, the real funny thing is it's a woman that was leading it. It's a
Right.
female one, which,
Right.
instantly made me or not made me, but I chose to get so much more agitated by seeing a
Yes.
woman
Yeah.
behaving like that.
So
It goes out of, I just don't see it as being very aligned to what it is to be a woman.
no, not at
And
all.
forgive me for bringing up a gender debate now.
Oh, now you're treading on thin ice. But yes, I see that people are in. As a coach, I get to coach a lot of people that are in trauma and in great pain from the past, and
Yeah.
I see how that influences their behaviors and
Mm.
everything that they do, and that's why we've always got to get back in accident prevention and accident investigation. You have to get down to the root cause of it,
Mm.
and it's no good trying to fix the symptoms of an illness. You've got to get down to what is the root cause of it, right?
Yeah.
So, what is the root cause of some of the anger that we're seeing on the planet? Seeing it in France, right, with the firelighting, the violence,
Yeah.
what's going on there? Well, people's needs are not being met, and they've been lied to. They've been subjugated. Their freedoms have been taken away from them. There's a disparity between the rich and the poor. There's
Mm.
gross inequalities. There's foreign policy um, directives which are damaging.
Yeah.
Immigration policies that may be damaging as well. All of
Mm.
these things. And yet, what we see is a young guy with a Molotov cocktail throwing it at a policeman.
Yeah.
All right. And that's not going to solve the problem. Putting
No.
him in jail is not going to solve the problem. He's going to come out worse and even more angry. So
Mm.
we need to fix the root cause, and nobody seems interested in doing that. Not at a political level, anyway.
Yeah. And also anyone that does put themselves into the fray, anyone that takes responsibility. I mean, it's a thankless task. I certainly wouldn't put myself in that kind of situation.
Yeah,
I put
yeah,
myself in different situations like the one we're doing right now, which is to facilitate a conversation or to have a conversation and to help people work through these issues in an imaginary setting. So we get to practice or to imagine what might happen. But I don't think I would find myself in that position of,
right.
running a police force or running a government or something. And an
Mm,
interesting little side note, I've got some friends who are parents in France, who've lived in France for many years and who I'm in touch with quite a bit. And so recently I've been saying, how are your grown-up children? Are they okay? I see France is in flames. And of course, France is massive. And
mm,
they've been keeping in touch with their kids, and not a single one of them has been affected by anything. So whatever we're seeing to make us react is huge. And I'm going to check in with one of my Hawaiian clients today,
yes,
to see how are you doing, because again, the whole idea is like Hawaii's on fire, but
yes,
we've had fires just up the road from us, and they look terrifying. Uh,
yes,
and I can see how those images could be used to get people very riled up about things.
yes. And it's fear porn.
Yeah,
If
isn't
it's
it
on
just?
if CNN, you're going to get a good dose of it every half an hour or so, right? And then you begin to think the world is a very dangerous place.
Yeah,
Uh,
it shouldn't be like that.
it shouldn't be like that.
Let's start fighting with reality.
Yeah,
Okay, I've really enjoyed this,
me too.
and I can see that we're heading up to the hour, which is always a good moment to stop. Plus, I need breakfast. My stomach's rumbling. Let's recap. So we called this Dueling with Duality, Unravelling the Mysteries of Consciousness, which I think actually we've done a bloody good job of, actually, I have to say. Or you have.
No, we have.
I think it's rather good. So right at the start, you gave a fantastic example of your daughter. Did she get her Minecraft sorted out, by the way?
It's not sorted out. She's overnighting, we're sleeping over. We're going to have a look at it on the weekend.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I really feel for her, because my kids would be very upset if they lost their Minecraft.
Yeah.
They love
Yeah.
Minecraft. They use
And
it
she
all
paid
the
for
time.
it herself. She worked very hard.
Yeah.
Where she's almost running the kitchen now in some
Wow.
cases. Yeah.
That's
So she wants to have a cafe one day, and she's learning and serving and cooking and
yeah.
doing everything there. So she was very disappointed. So
Well, I can understand that. And
yeah.
you know, as somebody who just, you know, wants to be getting on with life, and you think you're doing the right thing, and you're committed to being a hard worker, and you know, we do have these expectations. If I work hard, things are going to go my way, and things are going to work out. It's hard when you come up against that brick wall, and really difficult. Okay, so whether reality is going your way or not, when you're resisting reality, we fight and we lose when we're fighting against reality. And so right at the start, you said it's much easier if we can just accept reality, even if we don't condone it. We may not
Yes.
condone it. But mostly, a lot of us feel very feel like it's almost like a personal attack when things don't go our way, and we go into resistance, where there's no inspiration, no creativity. So we're not able to access those parts of us that could very well resolve, like come up with ideas and solutions and things that help us feel much better. And so, of course, we go into a place of unwise and unintelligent behaviors. Now, I loved your suggestions that when we go into resistance, and we'll know that because we'll feel really crappy, that we do something to uplift ourselves, and be creative, and possibly put out some kind of intention to manifest, and then kind of cut our attachment to it. Because, and this is the biggest piece, I think, of today, is our expectations reduce joy. So our expectations, our unmet expectations that things work out, when they don't work out, it's really, really tough for us. But the true freedom is in having the freedom to have your expectations met, but also to not have them met, and to be equally comfortable. And then the other thing that I've written down is that it's only the ego that can be offended, and it comes up when we feel fear, when we feel separate, or when we feel superior.
Yeah.
So all of those are a clue that you're resisting reality in some way.
Yes. Yes. And all of those you wrote down without even moving your eyes towards the paper. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Incredible.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that was
Okay.
really, really helpful, actually,
Good.
because I realize I'm a bit of a firebrand at times, and I do get quite irritated. And I do have lots of expectations as an eldest daughter as well. I think eldest children often have quite high expectations, because I think they feel the pressure of them from
Yes.
their parents.
Exactly.
So, okay. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for,
you, Louisa.
that's a great title. I love it. Yeah. So, yeah, I hope if you've been watching, you've got something useful out of this. Let us know below. Just, let us know if it's been useful or not, or if you have a title that you'd like us to explore. As you can see, Rick and I have got a very sort of laid back and lighthearted approach to the seriousness of life at times. We may need help navigating life at times. We're really real about it as well. And if we can be of help, that's really what we want to do. So thank you, Rick, once again.
Thank you. I always enjoy these, and we'll do another one again soon.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a really great rest of day and weekend and everything, and we'll speak to you real soon.
Indeed. Love you.
I love you too. Bye for now.